Traveling and discovering new things is a cemented part of our modern culture, with many of our ancestors traveling across the world to explore what they called the New World. Some traveled by boats for months on end, meticulously documenting their expedition, but not everyone made it back alive. Number 5. In 1500, Gaspar Cortereal, the son of the governor of Terceira, was granted the rights to go on an expedition by King Manuel I of Portugal. King Manuel had commissioned Gaspar to sail from Lisbon into the North Atlantic and report on his findings. The first trip was a success, and by the end of 1500, Gaspar had returned home from his voyage, telling King Manuel all about his trip and how he had encountered what we now know as modern-day Greenland. King Manuel was delighted by this news. However, he had hoped that Gaspar would have perhaps reached further afield, such as the Northwest Passage to Asia. In 1501, King Manuel sent Gaspar on another expedition and allowed Gaspar's brother, Miguel, to go with him. The expedition set off with 3 ships filled with crew, hoping to discover the Northwest Passage. 2 of these ships were returned to Portugal, including the ship that Miguel Cortereal was captaining. Aboard one of these ships were also 50 Native Americans who had been captured by the Portuguese expedition and sent on the return journey. Because of this, it's believed that Gaspar and Miguel reached Newfoundland and Labrador. However, joy quickly turned to sadness as the weeks passed. Gaspar was nowhere to be seen and did not return to Portugal like his brother Miguel had. Gaspar Cortereal was lost at sea, and it wouldn't be until 1502 that the king would send Miguel out to find him. Miguel carefully retraced his brother's steps, hoping to find that he started a new life in Canada. However, that wasn't the case. In a bizarre twist, Miguel also went missing and is considered to be lost at sea. It's unknown whether their boats were able to withstand the currents and weather off the coast of Canada. In 1503, the surviving brother asked the king if he could undertake a rescue mission. However, sensing that something wasn't quite right about that area the 2 brothers had traveled to, the king declined. The true fate of Miguel and Gaspar remains unknown to this day. Number 4. Born in 1565 in England, Henry Hudson was a British explorer who set out to find the Northwest Passage between Europe and Asia. Not much is known about his early life. We know that he was born in England and sailed for the Muscovy Company of London and other companies, such as the British East India Company, who sponsored him and his crewmates in their endeavors to find the New World. Hudson made several voyages between 1607 and 1611, passing through the North Pole and making note of everything he saw. His contributions to natural science cannot be understated. However, his final voyage in 1610 has greatly overshadowed these. In 1610, Hudson, along with his crew, set out on yet another voyage, but little did Hudson know this would be his last. By June 25th, 1610, Hudson and the crew of his boat, the Discovery, had reached northern Labrador. Everyone was elated as they believed they had finally found the Northwest Passage to Asia. However, this elation was short-lived. After spending several months of tirelessly searching, what is now known as the Hudson Strait, they were unable to find any passage to Asia. As the months drew on, the conditions became more hostile, and Hudson and his crew were forced to move ashore if they hoped to survive the winter. Winter passed, and Hudson was eager to pick up where he left off in Hudson Bay, determined to be the first person to discover the passage to Asia. However, his crew weren't enthusiastic about spending any more time at sea. After being battered by the harsh winter, his crew wanted nothing more than to get home to their families and rest for a while. As Hudson was the captain of the ship, they were forced to go along with him. That was until the crewmates had reached a breaking point and staged a mutiny to overthrow Hudson and return the Discovery to home soil. The crew forced Hudson, along with 7 other crew members, onto a small boat and sent them out to sea. Historical documents revealed that Hudson wasn't just sent on his way without the necessities. He and the 7 men were provided clothing, pikes, an iron pot, and food to keep them going. After setting Hudson and the other men down into the boat, they were never seen again by the crew of the Discovery. Accounts recall that Hudson attempted to keep up with them. However, the boat he was forced into was too small to keep up with the large ship. Hudson and 7 crewmates floated out to sea, never to be seen again. Number 3. Born in 1925, Peng Jiamu was destined for greatness. At a young age, Peng was fascinated by nature, and by 1947, he had graduated with a degree in biology from the Central University of China. After his graduation, Peng joined the Shanghai Institute of Biochemistry, where he worked under a well-respected biochemist. Despite being well-respected in his field of biochemistry, Peng always wanted more. In 1956, he learned that the Chinese Academy of Sciences was recruiting people to go on an expedition to Xinjiang. Those closest to Peng described how he dropped everything and threw himself into the application for this expedition, even giving up his chance to study abroad. Peng was determined to make it onto the expedition and wrote in his application letter, quote, "I have a strong wish to explore the frontiers. I have the courage to pave a way in the wilderness." His hard work and determination paid off, and he was chosen by the CAS president to travel to Xinjiang. He was sent to a region that is known for its harsh conditions of dry and infertile desert, mixed with soft riverbeds, causing chaos for all those who live there. Those who worked with Peng recall that this wasn't enough to put him off. He threw himself into his work and soldiered on despite the risk. In 1980, Peng, the now vice president of the Xinjiang branch of the CAS, set out to the area once again. The expedition had been cut short due to the Cultural Revolution that lasted from 1966 to 1976, but Peng didn't let that deter him. He dreamt of returning, and in 1980, he got his wish. In 1980, Peng, along with teams of chemists, geologists, biologists, archaeologists, and more, went to the region once again. This time around, the conditions were much harsher than anything the scientists had experienced before. Water supplies were low, and so was morale. Peng gave a speech to his team in which he said, quote, "Science is to walk a road not traveled by other people," and his team quickly bounced back. Just 5 days after giving this rallying speech, Peng mysteriously vanished. He simply left a note saying he was going to find water, but gave no further details on where he was going or when he planned to be back. As the days rolled by, panic began to set in, and his team searched for him day and night. Sadly, these searches turned up no results. Peng remains missing, with the CAS desperate to find out the truth. Number 2. Naomi Orimura has been missing for over 37 years. Orimura, a Japanese explorer and adventurer, was the first man to reach the North Pole alone, the first man to raft the Amazon alone, and the first man to climb the Denali alone. Born in 1941 in Japan, those closest to Orimura described him as a quiet and shy child who preferred to spend his time alone. Wanting to break out of his shell, Orimura joined his local alpine club and was instantly hooked. Within months, he was devoting all of his spare time to mountaineering and had finally felt like he found his calling in life. Over the next few years, Orimura broke records and became the first man to make solo journeys up some of the world's highest peaks. His final ascent began in February of 1984. Orimura had already successfully climbed Denali, located in the Denali National Park and Reserve in Alaska. Orimura made his first journey up Denali in August of 1970, when the conditions were much more favorable and easier to handle. However, by February of 1984, the conditions were far different than he had experienced 14 years earlier. Despite the harsh conditions, Orimura came prepared with a DIY self-rescue device fashioned from bamboo sticks, which would cover any holes he may have fallen into and allow him to pull himself to safety. He also chose to forego a tent, opting to sleep in caves and eat whatever he could find on the mountain. What makes his expeditions all the more impressive is that he always traveled light, carrying only 18 kilograms worth of equipment plus his sledge. He traveled as light as possible, which allowed him to descend Denali in just 8 days. It would take others 14 days. By February 12, 1984, Orimura had completed what he set out to do. He'd reached the summit of Denali and placed a Japanese flag, but little did he know that he would not survive the descent. A day after he placed the flag at the summit of Denali, he had radio communication with another group of explorers. He told them that he had just reached the summit and that he would be back at the camp in a matter of days. Despite numerous search efforts, Orimura was never seen again. Search crews did find his equipment, which he left behind to lighten his load. They also found a diary where he wrote about his adventure up Denali, describing negative 40 degrees Celsius weather, frozen food, and poor shelter. Chillingly, his last diary entry read, quote, "I wish I could sleep in a warm sleeping bag. No matter what happens, I'm going to climb McKinley." Number 1. In 1925, Percy Fawcett, along with his oldest son Jack and one of Jack's friends, Raleigh Rimmel, set out to find the lost city of Z, which he believed was located in Brazil. More specifically, Fawcett believed that hidden deep in the Amazon rainforest laid an ancient and advanced civilization that was once simply known as Z. Fawcett had become obsessed with the lost city after venturing into the Amazon rainforest in the years before. His main idea came from the fact that during his time in the Amazon, he'd encountered many indigenous groups who were able to survive in such remote areas and unforgiving surroundings. Building on this idea, he began looking into theories about other lost cities written by European conquistadors. By 1925, Fawcett had already tried to find the lost city of Z twice, but had failed miserably. The two previous expeditions had been called off due to bad weather, exhaustion, and tropical illness. Undeterred, Fawcett kept pushing on and was finally able to secure funding for the third trip by a group known only as the Glove. In January of 1925, Fawcett left New Jersey, headed for Rio de Janeiro, and after landing there, his crew traveled to the remote outpost of Cuiabá. It was here that Fawcett, along with his two companions, went into the Amazon and attempted to make their way through the sweltering maze of trees and hostile natives. By May 29th, Fawcett and his crew had reached the Dead Horse Camp, so named because Fawcett had been forced to shoot his lame horse. It was at this point that Fawcett ordered his native guides to return to Cuiabá with their equipment, as he wanted to make this part of the journey alone. Along with the equipment, Fawcett handed them a note to pass along to his wife, which read, quote, "Jack is well and fit and getting stronger every day. You need have no fear of any failure." This was the last time that Percy Fawcett, Jack Fawcett, and Raleigh Rimmel were ever seen alive. 2 years passed without so much as a word from the Fawcett expedition, and soon newspapers began reporting on their disappearance. Rumors spread that Fawcett had been captured by one of the indigenous tribes, or that he'd become the chief of one of these tribes. In 1982, the Royal Geographical Society launched an expedition to find out what happened to Fawcett and his crew. However, nothing has been found, and the mystery of what happened to Percy Fawcett remains unsolved. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.